Hello, everybody. This is cool. Okay, so thank you for coming to my talk. I know it's been a long day. I hope you enjoyed it. And probably you have something like this at the back of your mind, right? Some of you are already offering me a beer, wine. So, as a final speaker, I promise you to get you to the Deep South on time. But let's focus for the last 45 minutes, because I think this subject is the one that you can benefit from. The talk is called Building a Bridge Between Design and Development with User Experience-Driven Development. So it's all about development process and how we can incorporate UX practices into the project's lifecycle. And if you are hoping to learn how to build an actual bridge, you're probably at the wrong conference. You can just grab your goodie bag and head out. We promise not to judge. So before I go through the details, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Jeremi Walawicz, and I am a UX developer at Design Wizard. Just over 7 years ago, I started my first role as web designer at small companies that delivered a wide variety of IT services. I was the only one who was responsible for web development and graphic design. That gave me a great learning experience, and I could improve in both areas for about almost 2 years. Then I moved on to an interactive agency where I worked with web applications for a number of clients. I was able to hone design skills and front-end skills, using them to create a user experience that worked for each application and the target audience. In 2013, I moved to Ireland, where I took up a role as a front-end developer. And just 1.5 years ago, I joined Design Wizard. And as a UX developer, I am responsible for user experience, and I code almost every day. So now you know a little bit about me, and it's time I would like to know a little bit about you. So can you please tell me how many developers you've got in this room? Can you raise your hand, please? Okay, that's expected. And how many UI, UX, web designers you got here? Okay, that's cool. How many on the business side? Marketers? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's talk about user experience. So I'm guessing that most of you know what UX is, or have a just rough idea what does it mean. But I'm 100% sure that you all have experienced it in the real life. So I prepared a few examples from the real world. The first example is MRI scan. So Doug Dietz, an industrial designer at GE Healthcare, came with very elegant and modern design for MRI chamber, its equipment, its displays and equipment. Doug was very proud and happy to see his machine up and running in Pittsburgh Hospital. And while he was admiring it, he'd been asked to pause because there was a patient coming through in a minute, and he saw one of the most vulnerable patients being terrified. So if you ever had an MRI scan, you probably know that you have to lie completely still to get proper results, and it's also very, very loud. So in case of the kids, they couldn't accomplish this, and they would need to call an anesthesiologist to come and sedate the child. And when, in the case where there was no anesthesiologist available, they had to postpone the entire procedure, and both parents and kids would need to go through this painful process once again. But that didn't give up. He and his team created, they worked on the redesign, and they created a pirate ship. So that was a huge success. Like, they created a whole story behind it. There was an operator was involved, inviting the kids to the game, and I think they come up with 8 or 9 scenarios. It was a pirate ship, a spaceship, jungle adventure, etc. So big success for them. I think it was the number of kids that had to be selected dropped from 80% to just 10%. So GE was delighted because they could scan more patients every day. But the biggest success for Jack was that he could actually see his little patients having fun. So this shows that the user research is hugely important. The next example is my beloved canteen. It's quite cozy, comfy. It's quite a cool design, but something is wrong with it. Can you tell me what's that?
It's too small.
Yeah, you've got a bench instead of table, right? So it shows it's like you can have a perfect design, but if it's not usable, it's just useless. We are living in a world where, according to the latest statistics, half of our population have internet access. So as developers, designers, marketers, or anybody else who is involved in the creation of the functional product, we should all be aware of the importance of UX and its consequences. So let's have a look on a few examples from the web. The first one is the online bank. You can't actually go to the physical branch, you can only create your account online. And as we can see, the UI is pretty rough. The first impression is quite bad. But as it was free and people could actually manage their account. But obviously, because of the outdated look of it, they had to redesign it. So they did this. They completely confused the content. They confused the users. First of all, the two-level tab navigation is just not working correctly. So, for example, payments and my finances is the two separate things. And this picture on the middle of the header is the profile picture. And it's a default profile picture. And why it's a boat? Why it's empty boat? If I get more money, they will just swim with it, or I get a bigger boat or something. Next one is messages are located in the strange tab called passage. I don't know what that means. So again, UI elements, visuals are pretty, like, they are improved, okay, but the usability is just worse than it was before. Next example. I don't know if you know this page. How many of you know this page? Okay, so you probably hate it. I hate it. It's a eFlow page. It's a website where you can pay a toll, or in most of the cases you pay a fine. But honestly, this UI and usability of this website is quite alright. Okay, so like I think that set up the call to action is pretty nice, and it's pretty easy to check and pay a fine. So I think they come up with this soft blue color for a purpose, just to calm people down before they have to pay. So it's a bad UX, okay? It's a bad UX, good usability. And the next example is the Duolingo. How many of you know this app? Okay, cool. So this is a freemium language learning application based on the web app and mobile apps. The best thing what I like about Duolingo, that they approach user straight away. They ask you for the language you learn. They don't push you to sign up first. They want you to have a test, to have a shot with their app. So the next step, they ask you for intensity of learning, and then they ask you to start with the first task, which is a few steps. And it's very, very, very immersive. I find it myself very enjoyable. And you can actually see that you're starting learning a language. So they accomplish the main target of the user. You're actually, as a user, you get your goal, you get your need, right? So, and at the end of each task, they set up the call to action, which is saying save the progress, otherwise you will lose your you lose your progress. So Duolingo started in 2012, and last year they revealed the number of users they have, and it's 100 million users. So it's quite good for an application that exists only 4 years on the market, right? I don't think so that they could achieve it if they wouldn't be oriented on UX. So through these examples, we can see how big an impact is, how big an impact UX has on your success or failure of your application or app or software, right? It's very rare to have no competition, and people have a choice. They can easily ditch your product or love it. So UX problems might come from different sources. It might be a UI problem, application performance problem, irrelevant content, or badly designed workflows, or it's a legal privacy issue. So and this is sure to harm the business. So how can we be more predictive? How can we find the problem before it's too late and the solution is too expensive? The answer is invest in UX. Well, shockingly, not every company is aware of the benefits of UX. There are different scales of UX maturity within organizations. So, for example, Nielsen Norman Group came up with the corporate UX maturity index that has 8 different stages. I decided to show you a simplified version of this scale with just 5 stages. So the first one is unrecognized. So it's basically lack of knowledge, and UX is not important. Second is interested, so there is awareness of UX, but it receives little funding. The next one is invested, so that's where the companies actually have resources for UX, and they're funding for research, software, and people. And another one is committed. That's where executives are actively involved, and UX is essential. And the last one is engaged. So that's where the UX is one of the elements of the core of the business strategy. So, how many would actually go back to the other slide? How many of you would you recognize yourself to be in the first stage, unrecognized?
I have it.
I feel sorry. Interested? Okay. Invested? Okay. Committed? That's cool. Engaged? Very good. Are you working for Duolingo? Okay. So if you're above stage 2, I think you should feel very happy about your company. So what does UX look in the practice? When does it become more beneficial? So UX-driven development, user experience-driven development, is the process that helps to detect problem, to find a problem before it's too late, before the problems really occur. So, but let's have a look at the process. So these are common stages for the development process, and no matter what planning methodology you're using, these should all exist in the project lifecycle. Okay. So when you think about the problems that gives us the biggest headaches and causes the most delays, we probably should think about the coding phase. And that's where we come as a developers, you come into the designers and say, look, we can't actually implement this because of this, that, and that, and we need you to redesign the whole thing. So where does it come from? And many development issues come from the badly designed layouts. And badly designed layouts are the result of wrong planning or lack of planning, poor development briefs, or communication issues within the team or between departments. So let's have a look on the UXDD. So user experience should be recognized at every level of organization and in every part of the process, from the very beginning and planning stage through to the core of the development phase, to the release and beyond. But where UXDD really lives is a central part of the development cycle between design and development. Two vital parts on the way to success or failure. So let's have a look how our UXDD bridge, how it does look like. Probably most of you recognize these stages. So the first one is to plan, create personas and create the user workflows, create user stories. Then we create wireframes, low or high fidelity wireframes. Then we build a prototype, we test the prototype, and then we are about to finish up the UI and visual design. Then we can start writing a test for our code, like unit tests. Then we can start actually coding, and then we test again. So, but if you want to avoid problems at the coding phase, I think we should have a look at these three stages. They are the most important. Right. So the first one is to plan, create a user workflow. Then we have to build a prototype, and then we test. But UXDD should verify our coding, the design phase, where let's have a look how does it look here. So the first step is to create a concept. So we should create it together. We should come up with a concept. We should invite developers. We should do brainstorming, right? We should work together and validate it. Do some validation on this concept, and create a low fidelity wireframes. That's where you can use a whiteboard, or we can do it on paper or on the screen. It doesn't matter. It's just the best what suits you. Then we can go and start building a prototype. And I am a big fan of creating high fidelity wireframes, as they reflect a better look it gives a real look of the app we are building. So we create a clickable working prototype. We test it internally first, and from my experience, we can always find loads of problems already in this stage, and then we iterate. We see I don't mean this iterate, but this one here in the prototype stage. We come back to the concept. We discuss it again, And once we are at the stage when you're happy about it, we can go and test it externally. And this should be a pretty quick process. So we test externally. We should do it with more than one person, not your CEO, for example. And then, because this is important, this is crucial. When we want to learn from people, we have to do it with somebody that is not involved in the project. Then we iterate. If something is wrong, we can detect and go back to the whole cycle and create the concept once again and go through that. So I know if you heard about BDD, probably you have. So it's a behavior-driven development, or DDD, domain-driven development, or TDD, test-driven development. Too much DDs. So all of these approaches are about to help to describe the product we are building, keep the consistency, and to find the origin of the problem, whether this is on the business logic problem or it's a problem on the technical side. And the UXD is another approach that we can verify our user experience. So it's more visual. It's the difference between all of these is that you can actually see and feel the application before it's built. So it's a huge value before we actually start coding. And everybody else within the organization can see what we are building. You know? Okay. With the traditional approach, if you don't want to go with the user experience development, I think we can basically pay more money, because like if we approach the project from the wrong side, and then we find it out when it's already in production, and we have to build the whole functionality, it's becoming really expensive. So I think it's worth to invest a bit more money with user experience development and avoid most of the problems. We won't never get to the point where we can predict the problems 100%, and we can't be 100% sure, but we'll be closer to the problem anyway. So first, invest in UX. Communicate your teams. Change the design process. Invite developers, executives, and anybody else who can help you to define the problem. This is for I put too much effort into it actually. Okay, so it's a nice bridge. UXD benefits. I think the main benefit is that we can, as I said before many times, find the problem before it occurs. So that should really be another factor for reducing the cost. Improves collaboration. Because like I know many of you probably find yourself in a situation where we have to argue with a designer, right? So that should if we talk to each other, if our communication is better, and we are planning things together, we can avoid loads of issues, and that's a big advantage, I think. Saves money. Saves money. It's a very important part, and the most important thing: better user experience to your customers, to your clients, to your patients, to the people. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Can we take some questions?
Yes, why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question and an observation. So when you talk about UX, MailChimp stands out to me. Have you seen that? I think it's phenomenal. It blows me away. You know? I've never seen UX like that before. So that's just
I know MailChimp, yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm not using it constantly, so
Yeah.
I cannot go through more
yeah,
details.
yeah, no
with it,
problem.
you know?
I just want to share that.
Yeah.
But, so if I want to communicate to developers, right, I'm not a UX expert, but I want to prototype something. What
Yeah.
tool can I use that I don't have to be an expert to use?
To prototype?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the first one, if you have a designer, you know, it's a developer, right? So I think that you don't have to be an artist to sketch a wireframe, you know?
Yeah.
When you're creating a concept, I think everybody should create a concept, to create a low-fidelity wireframe, because everybody have a different perspective and different angle on the things, you know? So create a low-fidelity wireframe, and there are other tools that you can create a prototype from it, you know?
Yeah.
So, for example, there's an InVision app, which I use very often, and that just helps you to create, to create the workflows, and by adding the hotspot, you can create a pretty good prototype, and it's very fast.
Okay.
Very fast. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hiya. The organizational maturity chart that you had up a second ago, or a few slides ago, do you have any resources or strategies or even studies that would help an organization go from unaware to engaged? Because if they're at that kind of very early stage where they don't even know that they need it, how do you impress upon them, or where would you go to first?
Well, well, the first question was if I have any resources, right?
Sure.
What they say. So I think that every single case is different, right? So the most, like, if somebody tries to run a business, and I think that person should do a proper research about how we should build an application or software, right? So it's very hard. It's very hard to like. It's easy to it should be easy to convince somebody. Like, it depends on the resources you've got. If you got little money, I think you should release like MVP, so minimum viable product. You can see what people really want, and then I think that I don't know, like it's hard to tell actually, because every single case is different, right? And the biggest problems, I think, some companies, for example, didn't care about UX from the very beginning, and they are like big companies, and like it's very hard to change anything there, you know. So I can't tell you what like.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good question. No, you do? Yeah? Okay. You're allowed, Rob, it's all right.
I can hear from here.
Hi. So from a greenfield perspective, this all makes sense. If you come on board onto a product that's successful and all that, how do you apply the UX DD
Practices.
approach
Approach, yeah.
practices? And
Yeah.
secondly, do you use analytics and data to drive any of this?
Well, the first one is, I guess, it's how do I apply it? So first of all, we have to. I think the design process should go ahead from the development stage. So we should all we should be at least a sprint before it, right? So we can plan everything correct, and we don't want to hold anybody, like, because there's developers would like to work and they can't because we are waiting for the designs, and that's a common problem there. But if we start implementing this before the actually coding phase is done, that should be fine. Do I implement the Google Analytics? No, not at this point. No.
Yeah.
To be on the same page as we are, you know. That's a crucial thing, I guess. It's like to work together on the concept. It doesn't take a long time. You don't have to drag the developer out from the project for like a day or something. It just can take you half an hour. But they know what to expect afterwards.
Cool. Was it what you meant by the internal validation
Yes.
stage. Yeah.
Yes. So that's an internal validation. Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Can I grab my beer then? No?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you.